By Jeremy Sher, and I want to share some thoughts on this week's Torah portion, Shemot, the first reading of the book of Exodus. It is January 21st, 2017. And in our Torah portion, the portion is Exodus 1:1 to Exodus 6:1. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph, Exodus 1:8. And it continues, the king said to his people, look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. Let us deal shrewdly with them, so that they may not increase. Otherwise, in the event of war, they may join our enemies in fighting against us and rise from the ground. Does this sound familiar as a way to talk about minorities? It sounds familiar to me. And it sounds familiar to me because I'm Jewish, and the Jewish people have been at the business end of this kind of bullying, this kind of bigotry, this kind of fascism from time immemorial. We have always been the enemy of bullies and the enemy of bigots. And we can talk about why, but right now I think our Torah portion teaches us a lot about how bullies behave and how they come about. This Pharaoh is definitely a bully. He is a bigot. He's an ethnic bigot. It's us versus them. He's appealing to the us and against the them. Let us deal shrewdly with them so that they may not increase. They may join our enemies. He's a fascist. He forces people to work for no wages and takes the profits of that work and conflates it with the state. That's fascism. And it all begins with this appeal to populism, with this appeal to the us, and an appeal to the us that excludes a them. So he's got people afraid. He's got the Egyptian people afraid. What happens next? After slavery, everything gets worse and worse and worse. The Egyptians put the Israelites to hard work designed to break them. And we tell this story every Passover. And with every passing outrage, the outrage gets normalized. So people say, well, that was, something that happened. And then the next worst thing happens until Exodus 1:15 and 1:16. The king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, saying, when you deliver the Hebrew women, look at the birth stool. If it is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live. So by a gradation of increasingly outrageous designs, the Pharaoh has gotten the people to the point where this could even be said, let alone done. As we know, the women don't do it, of course, and trouble ensues. One of those boys who is not killed is Moses. Moses grows up, and what happens next? When Moses Moses sees the burning bush. God tells Moses to tell Pharaoh to let his people go. Moses won't do it without his brother Aaron. Moses and Aaron go together. And they tell Pharaoh to let the people go. And what does Pharaoh say? Pharaoh says, but the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you distract the people from their tasks? Get to your labors. Now, isn't that interesting? Get to your labors. Lechu v'sivlotechem. So, you see the connection between fascism and bigotry, between slavery and hate and bullying. The work is designed not only to keep the people in check, but to keep them busy. So the idea that you have so much work to do that you have to worry about getting the work done or else face punishment distracts you from the struggle for liberation. And that's very, very much the design. We see that every time we see slavery in world history, and we see that every time we see fascism. You just need to kind of keep your head down and get to work. Sure enough, the foremen of the Israelites found themselves in trouble because of the order, you must not reduce your daily quantity of bricks without the straw. As they left Pharaoh's presence, they came upon Moses and Aaron standing in their path, and they said to them, may the Lord look upon you and punish you for making us loathsome to Pharaoh and his courtiers, putting a sword in their hands to slay us. So the foremen are now blaming Moses and Aaron for making the situation worse. Very, very much the design of the bully. So until finally, at long last, Moses brings his message to the Israelites, and what do they say? They say, when Moses told this to the Israelites, they would not listen to Moses. Their spirits crushed by cruel bondage. Their spirits crushed. Mikotze ruach. And that is the aim of the bully. The aim of the bully is always to crush your spirit so you can't fight back. And the bully does this with imposing work and labor, imposing worry. The bully does that with insults. The bully does that by making you a second-class citizen. The bully does that by turning people against each other. The bully does that by turning people against leaders who would speak out. The bully does that by turning the majority against the minority. The bully does that by turning the minority against the minority. And that's how bullies work, and that's how bullies operate. And we see the same story over and over and over again throughout world history, throughout Jewish history, throughout American history. It's nothing new. It's not creative. It's not special. It's not new. It's just another bully. And I want to tell you something about bullies that I've kind of learned from working in politics and just sort of being a rabbi and a student of history. One of the things I've learned is that when it's not fun for them, they take their marbles and go home. So the bully always wants you to be afraid of them. They get a lot of jollies out of that. They get their kicks from kicking you. And the more you kind of stand there being shocked, oh my God, this is so shocking, I don't know what to say. The bully's laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. And that's fun for them. It's fun for them when they get their way. It's fun for them when you do what they say. And when you succeed in not doing what they say and are fine, that's not so much fun for them. I find humor works. Bullies don't really get humor. Their jokes aren't funny. And that's not so much fun for them, particularly when they're at the butt of the jokes. And it's actually easy to make fun of a bully because a bully is a fraud. From Pharaoh to Hitler to every other bully we've seen, every other bigot, every other fascist that we've seen in the history of the world, they're all frauds. They're frauds and charlatans. They're not as good as they claim to be. Just a fraud. Just a ballooned up nothing burger. Nothing but a big shadow of, you make your fingers with some kind of pattern and a big old shadow comes on the wall and it looks like a monster. That's all they are. They're only something because people follow them. If nobody followed them, no bully would be anything. Bully's a fraud. And a bully's a fraud and a bully's a charlatan because the truth is that God creates us equal. And if you believe that that's the truth, then you believe that anyone who says otherwise is a fraud. Fraud. They don't have anything to offer. They're just a puffed up, pathetic nothing. That's all a bully is. And it's very important to call out a bully as a fraud. And Moses actually does that, and God does that, in the next Torah reading that we'll see next week. And we need to be calling out our bullies as frauds. It's not that they're so powerful. It's not that, it's not even, I'm angry about it, but it's not even that they make us so angry. It's that they're a fraud. It's that there's nothing there. They're not, you're shaking in their boots. They're not as big and tough as they claim to be. They never are, from the schoolyard to the White House. A bully's a fraud. And I think it's really important to remember the truth, because the truth is that God creates human beings equal and that human beings have equal rights. And anybody who says otherwise, it's a fraud. And you can't be too afraid of that. And the bully always, once again, wants you to be afraid. Whether you're afraid of consequences for speaking out, whether you're afraid of, getting behind in that work that the bully imposes, that the fascist imposes on you. Whether you're worried about, losing safety, well, we're not safe at all, is the truth. We only have our faith, and we only have our principles. And hopefully in numbers there can be some, defense. But, the idea of being safe in the grasp of a bully, that's no safety. And so it's important not to be too afraid. And certainly not to be afraid of what the bully says. Because when you're afraid, the bully's laughing. The bully likes that. That's what gives them their kicks. That's what puts the batteries in their bunny. And when you're not afraid of them, you take the batteries out of their bunny. Well, they're going to try to come down hard on you, as Pharaoh does. They're going to try their best. You've got a plan. You've got to be smart. You got to, plan a resistance in a way that's likely to work in order to deliver to that bully the proof that they're a fraud. You got to be smart, but you can't be afraid, and you can't be afraid to act, and you can't be afraid to call it out. So, when I see somebody claiming that America's better off without some minority, any minority, every minority, whether it be blacks or Jews or Latinos, just so ridiculous. Asian executives in Silicon Valley. I mean, I hear all kinds of ridiculous Native Americans, ridiculous nonsense. The disrespect for women. I can't even begin to enumerate the disabled, people with physical disabilities, people with mental disabilities. I just can't even try to enumerate all of the different insults that I've heard in our national discourse over the past year. Fraud, 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 fraud. There's nothing there. And we need to remember not to be too afraid of it. And we need to be smart about planning how we're going to call it out. Because the time has come to learn from this Torah portion, and the time has come to speak once again truth to power. And if you're interested in doing that, I'm right there with you. And together we'll figure out how to get it done, because the truth is on the side of justice. Because the truth is that we're all human beings, and we all have equal rights, and we're all created equally in the image of God. Therefore, was man created alone? Therefore, were people created alone? So that nobody would brag of their lineage, says the Mishnah. Saying, my father was greater than your father. That's the truth. That's God's truth in the Torah, and that's the truth we all know in our hearts and in our souls. And it's time to tell it.